So we are going to take a look at the pieces that form the side piece of the extrusion. I'm going to line them up from piece 0 tab is going to connect to the flat part of piece 1. And then we'll just keep on continuing, so piece 1 will connect to piece 2 and so on. So I'm just kind of showing the basic way that these are put together. The top and the lower part of the box are going to be done exactly the same. Just make sure that you get the pieces to match up for the bottom and the top, because there's a slight difference in size. Now, as I did this, I realized that there were a couple of issues, so I have the file with all the extra goodies, and I'll put a link to that in the comments. Okay, so we've got all of the side pieces lined up, and now we're just going to connect the end of the last one to the first one. It's going to make a big loop. The house is actually pretty easy because it's symmetric, and it's really easy to tell where the side pieces go. Some pieces you might design might be a little more difficult, but that's why the 1 and the 2 are in the file, so you can tell how the strips match up. And I'm just making a mark on there. If it were a more difficult piece, that might be useful. You can always go back to your file and see where the 1 and the 2 are when you do the extrusion. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that I've got all of my folds here, and the piece that forms the top or the bottom of the box is just going to glue to the inside of this big loop. It's really fairly straightforward. Here I'm trying to get the shape of the house here. Yeah, you get the idea. And it's usually going to be easier when we get ready to do this to glue the piece to the longest tab just to get it put into place. So in this case, it will fit right down there on our longest tab. That's where I will start it out. And then I can fold everything else down like so. Again, I'm just showing you how everything will fit. Okay, so that part is done. We're going to glue it in place. And yes, it will become discombobulated until everything is glued, because it's just a big loose loop. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to glue at least the long one in place to start out. Might do 2 tabs to start out, but don't try to do them all on the very first one. You can do the rest of them after you kind of get it anchored. So it's important to try to get it as close to that score line and where the fold is as possible. So just kind of push on it. Make sure you get a good grip. And once that's done, you can glue all the rest of the tabs. Go a little bit heavy on the glue on these tabs. Normally we use a light glue, but it might take a little bit of time, so you don't want the glue to completely dry before you've gone around. So you can see how this forms the extrusion. The paper I used here is a little bit flimsy. It's just regular cardstock, 65-pound cardstock that I usually use for printing patterns and things. But it works just fine. Okay, so I'm just pushing this main piece right down against those bottom tabs. And at the bottom it doesn't make any difference whether it's whether it's face up or face down, to be honest, because we're going to cover it up And on this it's symmetric, so it doesn't matter. All of these top tabs we're going to glue and fold over. That's going to give a little bit of extra strength to our edge. So just gluing these down. You know, if you didn't want to have that extra strength around your edge, you could just edit off those tabs. I tend to leave them on just because I do like to have more than just a single sheet of, or single thickness of the cardstock at the edge. And it doesn't take very long to glue those down. Okay, and with that we basically have finished the bottom of our box. We'll set that aside and basically repeat the process for the top part of the box. So let me get my pieces here. Again, I numbered them before I took them off of the cutting. Actually, I took them off of the cutting mat, but then I matched them up and numbered them just so they'd be easier to work with when I went to glue. So I've got 0, 1, 2, 3. Give these a really quick fold because I forgot to do that. Excuse me. Okay, we're done with that. We're going to do the same thing we did before. Glue part 0 to part 1, tab to flat end. We're going to make another big loop. So you'll notice that all of these sides are a certain limited length, and rather than just try to have one big piece, I could have probably had it a little bit simpler to cut if I would have said to go with a 12-inch size, or I'm sorry, that would fit on a 12-inch cardstock, so 11.5 inches. But I like to leave the option sometimes of being able to cut on letter size paper. Sometimes I can even use scraps. In this case, no, I used just new paper. And here's our last one. 203. And make our loop. I'll just make a little mark on there so I know where the beginning of that loop is. Okay, and again we're going to do the same thing, so you can see that just form it into that shape of the peaks of the house. There you go. That's kind of the shape of our house. And again, it'll set once we get the actual top piece in. If you're making an object that is not symmetric, just when you get ready to glue it into the top or the bottom, pay attention that your box will fit together as you expect. You don't want to have them both facing the same direction, because when you flip over the bottom to put it in, it won't work. Here I'm putting on the vellum. I just hand cut this vellum from some scraps that I had, but I did add to the file that I linked to. I have the actual size pieces that you can cut. And again, they're not exact, they just kind of fit over these holes. You actually wouldn't even need to cut the holes or have the door cut, because if you wanted just a solid box, I wanted mine to be able to be alternately used as sort of a luminary or a light box if somebody wanted to use it after they get their gift in it. I also added some curtains that you can put on the inside here along with your vellum. I'm not doing that right here. Oops, got it on the wrong one. We'll put it here. I didn't put the curtains on at this point. I put them on later. Alright, so the vellum is on, and we're going to go ahead and put it onto this ring here, this loop. Be sure to have the vellum side facing inward. And again, if you have a non-symmetric piece, be careful. I tried this one time with a non-symmetric piece and ended up with, well, a pig that had two pieces that didn't fit together. Okay, here's the door. If you watched the other video, you'll notice that I forgot to put the tab on the door, so I just literally scotch taped a tab on there. And except one thing here, you'll see that I'm making a mistake. I'm putting my scotch tape out. I think I'm going to realize that when I turn it over, and oops. Okay, that's not going to work. Alright, pull it off. Just re-glue it. Okay. It's going to be a little bit ugly because I'm going to have a bit of glue on the other side, but don't worry. I make mistakes when I put things together, especially in a case like this where it's kind of like the first time I'm putting this one together. And I discover a little problem here and there. So there's a couple things as I do this video that I'm going to fix, but it'll be fixed in the file when I upload it, so not to worry. Alright, now that we've got everything in there, again, make sure your vellum pieces are facing toward the inside of the box. Anchor it down on the long. And after you get that anchored, being a little bit stubborn here. We'll get it. Okay. Now you see, there's another place I made a mistake. I forgot to cut out the tab near the door, so just for the moment, so we can see what happens, I'm just going to fix that by cutting it with my little scissors and folding it down. I'm going to have a boo-boo on my door there from my mistake, but yeah, we learn from our mistakes. Okay, that's going to work. What am I going to do with that tab? Well, let me just make that into a tab. We'll fold it in. Just make sure my door works. It does. So let me just glue that to the inside. Okay. That little mistake is fixed. Now, what I would say is the easy part. Just glue the rest of it together. Again, you go a bit heavy on the glue in case it takes any longer than you expect to put this thing together. This is actually a pretty simple project to make. It was certainly easy to design. The places I usually have the problem are things like remembering to add a tab to the door, remembering to cut out the tab at the bottom of the door, things like that. And when I actually make it, that's when I discover those errors. And hopefully there's a way to fix it without having to recut pieces. Usually there is. Not always. But it's just paper. I don't panic if I run into a problem. Now, sometimes people ask me where I learned Inkscape, and I can tell you it's just mostly tutorials and a lot of mistakes that I've had to fix and try over. I'm really excited that my husband was able to get the extruder extension up. Very impressed with him, but he's an impressive guy. Oh my goodness, he's probably going to be listening to this video. We'll see. Almost done. A few more. Again, this is just strengthening the edges a little bit. Not absolutely necessary, but I kind of prefer it this way. I guess if you wanted to, you could cut another front piece and use it as a liner to the inside of the box. There we go. Alright, so that's basically our top. And we'll be adding all of the decorations and everything else. That's pretty straightforward. I don't think we need to do the entire tutorial on how to apply decorative pieces. Hopefully that's self-explanatory. I also added some bushes to the file and some curtains to the file. So if you want to make yours look a little more fun, I'll post a picture of the final result. Also on the roof, I have a shingled roof now, so that will look very nice as well. And I did decide in the end to put a decorative piece on the back of my box, again, so it could be used kind of as a standalone piece in addition to being a box. Now this kind of box is a little bit flimsy at the edges, so it may not have a perfect fit in the back, but it's pretty good, and it does look better if you have some decorative paper on the back as well. All right, so I'm just going to glue on the other pieces. Finished house after we've glued on all the decorative pieces and everything. And as a second one, I lit up the house so you can see what it looks like if we light it from the inside.